this conversation and want this to continue, but we've got work to do this afternoon. And when I see in descriptions and introductions the words like manifesto and boot camp, we know we're in for something exciting. So I'd like to introduce Walker Meyn, who's going to introduce Jim Flannery. I'm excited to hear this conversation on wellness, but I think it's going to take us into wellness in a totally different way than we're used to talking about it. Over to you.
Thank you so much for having me. All right, so to begin this introduction, I think it'd be best to sort of go through a bit of a story. When I was in kindergarten, I was told by a staff member that there are some things in life that you have to do. This is the unfortunate truth that such a statement is a clear-cut message that compulsory schooling imposes on its students. Our current system demands that students subjugate themselves to ineffective bucket loads of homework, quizzes, and tests, taking away their joy of learning. They have to, as the statement before suggests, or else students can face detention, suspension, or expulsion. Students have no say in the matter. As we all know, something needs to be done about this. So many have tried to formulate a solution. Many insist that progressive models such as Montessori and Waldorf are the best bet we have in reforming our school system. And surely it is a step in the right direction. However, give or take my anecdotal experience as a Montessori student, I soon realized it's not good enough. Adults still call the shots, and students are only given a margin more say over their learning, but only within a specific mandated subject. Students still had no say in the matter. There had to be something better. As luck may have it, there is. In my freshman year of high school, I was first introduced to Dr. Peter Gray in an unschooling documentary. I didn't remember what the documentary was called, but the criticisms Dr. Peter Gray made against conventional schooling really resonated with me. To quote, "Grades in schools are as if teachers throw doggy biscuits to students for obeying their command." This animosity I had towards school now made perfect sense. Soon enough, I learned more about his research on self-directed education and the various SDE-aligned schools across the globe. Students have a say in the matter. Since then, I've been a long-term advocate for self-directed education as a viable restructuring of compulsory schooling. Published by the National Youth Rights Association, I have co-authored the Academia Manifesto with fellow unschooler Catherine Farr, outlining what we can work on towards democratizing our schools worldwide. I have also founded a new activism forum on Discord called the Academia Coalition, where various student rights organizations can work together to push legislation fulfilling the Academia Manifesto. What I've learned since then is that despite what my kindergarten teacher once said, we don't have to put up with a problematic school system that we've made for ourselves. However, everything I just said doesn't matter in the long run because I'm just one person who's already gone through this system. What matters is the following question. How do students themselves view their education experience? And how would they like to go forward with it? How would they want to promote student wellness? Well, one former student has the answer. Jim Flannery attended public school in the United States in a suburb in Connecticut. He got top grades that allowed him to go on to obtain a biomedical engineering degree from a top university where he graduated magna cum laude. By conventional metrics, 22-year-old Jim Flannery appeared to be the poster child for a successful public education system. As a surprising twist, at 27 years of age, Jim left that tech startup left the tech startup world and took a job as a physics teacher at a public high school. Within a year, Jim left high school to create an alternative to the conventional school system, setting the foundation for his organization, the Peer Unschooling Network. That being said, I now give the stage to Jim Flannery and his fellow associate, Jordan.
Thanks, Walker. to introduce me and say that I have the solution for that's a lot. That's a lot on my plate here. So let's set our ambitions a little lower and just say that we're going to have a really enjoyable conversation. Um, so I want to open up by reading something to you, and then I'm going to have Jordan Taylor join me, who is someone I met through the Peer Unschooling Network that Walker talked about. So this is something I want to read to you. Um, it's about obviously it's about education and specifically educational autonomy. And it's very short. I'm not going to spend this whole time reading to you. I promise you that. Here it goes. The issues of conventional schooling have harmed our youth in more ways than we recognize, causing unnecessary stress and pain to students throughout the United States of America. With times such as these, where society is changing before our very eyes, we call for the total restructuring of the conventional schooling system that prevails in the United States of America today. We are all too familiar with the issues faced by students on a daily basis, including the ACT, SAT, essays, exams, grades, homework, mandatory uniforms, and nonsensical prioritization of subjects. There's also more damaging practices and effects such as legalized corporal punishment, emotional abuse in classrooms, sleep deprivation, school-related stress, the school to prison pipeline, and school shootings. If you take away one thing, let it be this: youth suicide rates increase during school months. So if we, the people of these United States of America, expect to live in a democratic society free from authoritarianism, we must look at how we treat our youngest citizens. A cursory glance will show that democratic values are not found in our school system. Many people have created progressive models in response to this, well-intentioned models such as Montessori or Finland's model. However, it continues schooling's systemic coercion. So we demand to see something more for the sake of youth across the nation and really around the world. And we demand a transition to self-directed education. So I read that because it's beautiful, and not because I wrote it. That is the introduction to the Academia Manifesto that was written by Catherine Farr and Walker Meyn. Those are the words of a 17-year-old unschooler that left conventional school in 10th grade, and Walker, a sophomore in college who advocates for a complete restructuring of conventional schooling. I bring this document up because, I look young, and people keep saying that I'm, the leader of some youth uprising thing because I look young and because I just put out that app, Leave School, and because I started the Peer Unschooling Network. Yeah, I'm getting old relative to the people that we're talking about helping. And so it's really important to let their words be amplified. And like, if I can use my block here to amplify their words as much as I can, that's what I want to do. Speaking of amplifying young people's words, Jordan Taylor is on here, who is a young unschooler who I met through the Peer Unschooling Network. And I wanted us to chat a little bit, the two of us, kind of to debate in front of you. And also we'll take questions. But I want to chat about this Academia Manifesto because it outlines the problems very well. It outlines solutions very well. One of the challenges is implementation. And one of the earliest versions I saw of this manifesto, I felt like it appealed, or I felt like it was aimed very much at a top-down solution. It felt like an appeal to like a national authority or federal government, like, here's the solution, fix this. And then the draft that they actually published, I think, is a lot more of a grassroots effort. And I wanted Jordan and I to come on. Jordan's a really multi-talented individual. She's really brilliant and creative, and she's a great speaker. And she has hosted a web series on the Peer Unschooling Network called Unschooling Q&A with Miss Jordan Taylor. So if she should be on here somewhere. I don't know how it works to see where.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, cool. Oh, awesome. So Jordan, tell me, what do you think about the Academia Manifesto?
I'll just start with, well, I'm an unschooler. I'm technically graduated now, but I unschooled for the last 3 years of high school after going through public school and various private schools. And I actually loved school. I didn't suffer from a lot of what students currently suffer from, but I know that I came to believe that self-directed education was a better way and has been so much better for me and has freed me in all of these ways. And it's really important to me that other people are able to. I
know I'm cutting you off, just because people watching might not catch that. Can you just say, like, how old were you when you made that decision to leave and pursue self-directed? How old were you around at that age? And I won't interrupt you anymore, so I promise.
I was 14 when, it was my mother and I had both been reading the Teenage Liberation Handbook by Grace Llewellyn. But yes, it was more my decision than hers, and I've been autonomous in my education for 3 years now. Yeah, so I was a teenager. And I love the Academia Manifesto. I think it has a lot of truth. I especially agree with the issues that are outlined, that there are so many. It's just unbelievable how wrong the public school system is structured, and even a lot of alternatives to the public school system. And yes, so it's kind of got like a few different sections, and it talks about what self-directed education is, which of course I love since I've been living that, and gives a great K through 12 to college outline based on Peter Gray's work, that is also inspiring. And I guess my issues come into the demands that I think that the education system needs to be transformed from many different directions, that it can't just be government. And actually, I probably could think that it could just be people, but that it's very, very important that it's grassroots, not only in like a local government level, but in a individual level, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so let's dive in a little bit, because I think that we have like an audience here of a blend of parents, educators. There's a few young people who might consider themselves students. It sounds like what you're getting at is, whose responsibility is it for this movement to continue? Or I would think a better question is, whose responsibility is it for any individual young person who wants to pursue this? Like, if you're a 12, 13, 15, 11-year-old and you want to do what you do, right? They're looking at you right now on this YouTube video like, hey, she seems cool. She's got nice living room or something. I don't know. And they want to do what you've done. They want to pursue it. And there's like this feeling like, oh man, I've got to wait for the federal government to pass a law that makes it okay for me to be a self-directed learner. Or, oh, I need my state to change their homeschooling laws to accommodate me. Or, man, my parents are just not trusting in my ability to do this. But somehow you've navigated it. So like, how do you, like, whose responsibility? Is it a local government to create the facilities that allow this, like a great library and resources? Is it a family to provide? Like, you tell me, because you did this. I didn't. I'm just the dude curious about it.
And like you said at the beginning, like no solutions, like no certainty. I have one story, and for me, it was relatively easy because my parents were on board. I had their full support, and so I just did. I think that you hit on something with libraries. Like for my family, that has been like a major source of community and education, and it's mentioned towards the end of the Academia Manifesto as one of the different ways that the school system could be changed, or that this new restructuring could occur, is giving funding to libraries to become more of self-directed education spaces. I think that was actually one of my reservations at the idea of the government taking over self-directed education. That I personally don't want a federal government to take over too much in general, and especially not. That's the largest part of the problem now, is that the government is in charge of our education, and we aren't. So, yeah, I guess, yeah.
Well, that was the piece that I was trying to get at, because in the manifesto, the version that was published, they do focus more on local government and libraries. And the statistic I've seen in Peter Gray's study is that, public schools receive 30 times the funding of a public library. So in a way, you could say to double every library's budget and say, all right, next to every library, build a self-directed education center. I'm not saying it's a drop in the bucket, but that in itself would be at least a visible public commitment to SDE, something tangible. If that, I think that's what people are looking for, is like, show us something tangible to prove that you believe in this. It's like, but the whole idea is that you believe in yourself. Like, do you need the federal government to build statues to help you believe that, like, you can be as great as these heroes that once existed? Do we need their permission to pursue self-directed education? And that was the concern that we chatted a little bit about with the manifesto, is it asking the government for permission when this should be an individual's right to decide for themselves? And I don't know, maybe I think there's like both two prongs to it. I don't know. I mean, we debated for a long time chatting about this, trying to figure out, like, how do we grow this? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing. I think that personally, my initiatives would be more towards getting specific kids that need to leave out. That's really what the Peer Unschooling Network is supposed to help happen. And I've seen similar initiatives. And this is like a much grander scale.
Jordan, if you were running the Peer Unschooling Network and its goal was to help young people that wanted to leave, how would you do that?
That's a hard one.
What kind of budget would you need? What do you need? What resources? What would it take if that's what the goal was and you were the boss?
Well, I think it would, I don't know what type of budget it would need, but in terms of resources, it already has what could be. Whenever I think of movements, I think of like small meetings all over the place that kind of form into bigger meetings. And the idea of different kids starting clubs or making like personal marketing type things. I contacted a local group, a local youth project in my town, asking if I could have a self-directed education club where it's a place where all these teenagers, a lot of teenagers who go there because they don't really like school and they actually go there to like commiserate about it. Oftentimes, I wasn't able to because of my town shutting down, but
now, would there have been a financial cost to you, or is that just a community resource that you were just going to gather people at a community center, basically?
It was going to be gathering people at a community center, and actually they that specific community center has pretty ample funding if for youth-based youth-initiated projects. So I was going to be asking them to, I don't know, it was going to be like buying 25 copies of the Teenage Liberation Handbook that they could then either have there for kids to read or even take home and borrow. Like I was asking for funding for like kind of a self-directed education library. And then we would have this group where I could mentor kids in how to leave. And so that's just one example. And if other students were doing the same kind of thing in their towns, wherever, I'm in a little town in Western Massachusetts. But this could happen where, yeah, we don't, even though North Star is about an hour away, most of the people I know have never even heard of self-directed education. If there were other initiatives like that, putting up posters and telling friends and getting people together, I think that's been a huge issue for unschoolers, is finding other unschoolers. And I think initiatives like that, deliberately helping kids. Yeah, I think my poster said something like, hating school, but still want to be successful or something.
That's cool. No, I mean, do you think that would, I mean, I love, and I think we need to do more like things that are in physical spaces. I suppose you could have gone into your local community social media page and made, you know, with like you and your friends or your school and made a meme. You know, if you did, let's say that you didn't have the money or the resources or whatever access to go get a big poster board and the materials to make a sign. You could go on to some sort of, you know, Google Sketch or Google Slides and make a little graphic and share that around and just form your own little Discord server or community center groups. It sounds to me like, in a way, the barriers are not, you know, there's always some financial barrier. You got to get to the community center, right? But it doesn't sound like that's the barrier for you. It was just like having that initiative to put yourself out there, huh?
Yeah, it was I mean, I tend to work better in physical spaces. So that was the initiative there. And also that all of those kids were already right there. I was just kind of going to be popping up to, I don't know, evangelize for self-directed education. So
if that, how would you, let's say, we'll circle back to this. Let's say that you're running the Peer Unschooling Network and somehow you want to empower or enable others to, in their young people in their communities, to do what you were in the process of doing in your own community. So how could you see getting that toolkit, let's call it, that you use to start organizing in your local area? How could you get that toolkit in the hands of any young person that needed it? And let's say you had an organization, let's say you had the arms of an organization, you know, let's war game this thing. Let's say that you're the, you know, how would you pull it off?
Yeah, that's like a really cool suggestion. I hadn't thought about like, because there's a benefit of doing something, and then there's also even more powerful teaching other people how to do it. So I know, I mean, just with the Peer Unschooling Network, I have a resource of many unschoolers that are on this social media site. And if I were to have some kind of class on teaching how to start a group like this, doing the research to find out if there's a similar project going on somewhere near you, to
make sure you're not like reinventing the wheel. Like, why go create an organization if there's 1-2 blocks away that you just didn't hear about?
Yeah, well, because then it becomes an easy thing to just, because I think that's where it can get really tricky, is like wanting to form things that are too big in some way. Then it gets overwhelming and it isn't done. And so with this, it would just be like a one afternoon a week with some teenagers who are already there. And then if you get them excited, then yeah, my mom, it kind of follows, like my mom has this, is really into a natural medicine and like was learning how to use it. And She took a class, and then she taught a class, and then some of the people in her class taught that class again, all using this one lady who had made teaching available, like her own teaching on how to teach available.
Now, there's a part of me that wants to interrupt me. I'm so curious that original teacher, right?
Yeah.
So like, if you wanted to be a professional teacher, you would want to teach it and have like people keep coming in, and that would probably frustrate the teacher that those people then went and taught their stuff. Yet we agree that this is a really efficient way of spreading knowledge, right? Okay, just throw that out there.
Yeah, and bring this back to the Academia Manifesto. This is kind of one of the ways that, like, what to do until this takes place, because what's called for here is more of a larger scale, of a less.
What are you waiting for, Jordan? I'm sorry, did I miss something? What are you waiting for?
To start this?
Yeah.
Well,
were you waiting for permission or something?
Oh, well, in my case, it's lots of other interests.
Hey, I'm a busy guy too. I understand. I just wanted to see when is the time to begin? Who are the people that are supposed to begin? When does the first action, like there's a question. Let me give an analogy that's a little bit dreadful, but I think you'll understand what I mean. So in the state of Connecticut, a couple of months, I don't know, it was in probably July, I made a statement there that I was declaring the end of a war. Now, people thought I was a crazy person because, like, hey, through my lens, I see a war going on. People are getting killed, they're suffering, there's a lot, and I'd like to end it. But people think that's crazy because they don't see there's something going on. So what I'm saying is, like, it feels in this situation with our education system that people are waiting for some action, something, some trigger, something for stuff to happen. Like, we're all waiting for somebody to not tap us on the shoulder and say, okay, now it's your turn, go do the thing. So I'm just saying, like, yeah, I'm busy too. But obviously we're here on a Saturday morning doing this, so we care at least a little bit. And what's the next move, boss?
I mean, and I guess, yeah, it's a kind of question of dedicating myself to this, which I've thought about doing, and would like to do. I'm currently being persuaded to go the college route, even though I'm not sure about it.
Nothing wrong with that. Hey.
And hopefully in that way be able to help with something top down, if I were to get high enough. But yeah, I think with all of this, I mean, I always think, like, the time is now. There's only power right now.
So what do you want to study at college? What are you looking to major in?
I don't know, probably literature, honestly. I'm a little obsessed with British literature.
Cool.
And so, but it's been recommended to me that I become a professor. And I think I might try for that route, in which case I might go into the education field to undermine it. But
all right, I got to interrupt you. Speaking of undermining the system and becoming a professor, do you want to know what my long-term interest was to be a professor? Because I thought they had the dopest life because they got to teach and do research, and some of them even did startups. I was like, yeah, you guys got it made. You do it all. What a great gig. And but to actually go the route of becoming a tenured professor, you seem miserable. So I made a bet with a friend of mine that before I was 40, I would get one of those honorary doctorates from a school. So I still got another like 5 years to go. And I figure if I get one of those, someone will be willing to call me professor at a school and give me like a little bit of money. So I'm not saying, I'm just throwing out that that's the path that I'm taking to professorship. If that's the reason you're going to college, is just to become a professor, I'm not saying that mine will work. I got another 5 years, and every year seems to be a little bit better than the year before. So I think it'll be all right. Either way, I think it'll be all right. Yeah. Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I wanted to have some time to take questions from people. if I know this is a fun conversation, and I'm sort of tricking you into taking a job on the air here, which isn't, this is fun, but it's not super appropriate. So what kind of questions do people have? Anyone want to ask Jordan some stuff? Or I mean, I could answer things too, but, or I could keep pressuring Jordan into taking on the leadership role at Pun. We'll see. Thank you, Stephanie. That's kind of you to say. All right, let's pull in the thread. Jordan, you were talking about wanting to get a degree because you wanted to change things a little bit from the top down. Like, what do you, when you're picturing this trajectory of your life, right? Here you are, you're thinking, all right, I'm going to go to college, get a degree. Somehow that will position me to be in a role, maybe a power of something that can influence change. Or I mean, if you go get a PhD, you'll probably be in school maybe till you're 30 or so. But like, tell me a little bit, like, what is that plan? Even if it's loose, I'm just, because I mean, we all have like a trajectory that we envision, and that leads to like all those decisions we make along the way. So can you share a little about that?
Sure. I'll just share briefly so we can take Grace's question.
Oh, I didn't even see it.
Well, no. She just, like, as you were asking.
Okay.
Yeah, well, with this, it's a very loose plan. The only way that I could actually like agree, like, I don't know, agree with this plan it was suggested to me, and then I started to like it more and more, was the idea, like, knowing that I could at any point abandon it, was the only way I could actually like be like, I'll become a professor.
Nice.
Yeah, I guess the idea is, I mean, that Peter Gray, he's a great example that people turn to him in his work because he has some of like the worldly qualifications that, and the educational qualifications that certain people require to pay attention to someone. And
let me ask, I love Peter, but let me just say this. Yeah. If Peter Gray's work never existed, would that have influenced your decision to become an unschooler?
Well, no, because there were some other people's work.
Right, but there's something in your soul. And I mean, I often feel like, I mean, his work is great, but a lot of times it's like people bring it up to try to justify the decisions they made because it was true to their heart and their mind. And like they get defensive, and then someone's like, hey, listen, leave me alone. This is the right decision. And there's a professor at Boston College that says, you know, I mean, I love his work, but I often feel like we shouldn't need that research to say this is okay. We shouldn't need all this shit that is being created in order to just declare ourselves like free learners that want to pursue knowledge. I mean, and it's great that Peter's stuff exists. Yeah, I'm sorry. I got a little riled up. My bad, dude.
No, and I totally get that, because like for me personally, it was people like Blake Bowles and Grace Llewellyn and your work that were inspiring for me to leave. I guess something like the Academia Manifesto, like the government respects people with qualifications better, for example. And I think that's part of the, even though I personally like the coming from underneath, there's also something to having influence at a different level. And I'm it's just an idea. We'll see.
Okay. I want to, after we answer their questions, then I want to ask, what is this change you wish to see in the world? But why don't you take, I see Heather and Bruno had some questions for you. And maybe you mentioned Grace too.
Yeah, Grace, why don't you go ahead?
Hi, are you able to hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect. So my question is, Jordan, what is kind of like persuading you the most for college? Like, is it kind of having that position where maybe you can do kind of the top down, kind of initiate change? Or is there something like, I know I'm taking a gap year right now because I'm trying to figure out what the next steps are for me. So I'm wondering kind of like what is the main factor that's driving you to post-secondary institution?
Yeah, I'm also in my gap year and I'm applying to college right now. And the main couple of influences was like my mother and a counselor who I love I'm naturally academic, and I love like reading old books and talking about them and writing and like all of the stuff that would set me up for success in a college. And so I think it's honestly, it's like being told like you would do so well in that, and also like the idea of going to a place where I could meet a lot of other people who are just as excited about learning as I am, which at college there are certain places, certain groups of people that are not that way. They're going there for whatever reason, but you also find people who get excited about Austin like I do. So things like that are part of the reason. Also kind of a networking thing, to meet other people that have similar interests and passions to me. Those are some of the reasons. Like if school was online, I don't think I would go like it is this year. Yeah, I think that's the main thing, is that like I've been told I would be good for college. But there's the decision of would it be good for me? Yeah,
exactly. But it sounds like that even you're kind of inspired to go there because of all the other people that you'll meet that are also interested in like British literature. Is that what you said you're interested in?
Well, right? Lots of things, but that's one. Yes.
That's specific, right? And I bet you may find like a huge pool of people that are going to be just as enthusiastic. And so I think that's exciting. Like I think one thing as kind of homeschoolers and unschoolers, we need to realize that you can go into kind of more of the traditional education pathways if you want to, like if that's where kind of your unschooling journey is leading you. Like, I don't know. I'm excited to see how it goes for you in there. I think it'll be really fun.
Thank you.
Nice. There's a couple more. One from Heather. Jordan, what did your friends think when you decided to leave school and explore self-directed education? Were they supportive?
Well, I will say that I had a couple friends that I stayed friends with after I left school. I went to a very small school. And yeah, there were 15 kids in my class and 60 kids in the whole school. And I found that I was a part of what was really a network and not a community. That we were friends because we saw each other every day and not because we actually cared about each other beyond that. And so I actually lost most of my friends from school. But I also became friends with, I became friends with a lot of adults, which is kind of funny. A lot of my best friends are like more like mentors. And then I spend a lot of time with my family. And then I have a community, it's about half an hour away, where there are a lot of homeschoolers and really unschoolers. So I kind of became involved in that community, and it's a multi-generational community that like my friends range from like 12 to 30, and it's I found like a pretty special place. But in terms of like keeping my school friends, I have a couple that I'm occasionally in contact with, and see because like our families are friends. But most of them found it hard to relate with me after I left. And I think some of them felt pretty threatened by my decision, that like some of them would actually kind of, I don't know, make little comments like defending school and defending their going to school specifically. So yeah, it was kind of an interesting mix. Like I made friends based on interests afterwards, and based on external communities to school.
Thank you. I really appreciate you answering my question, because my kids are 9 and 11, and we just started unschooling like the end of summer, and I'm finding that there is a challenge there with them connecting with their friends, because they're like, wait, you get to do it all, whatever you want all day? That's not fair. Like we have to go to school, and then the conversations always seem to revolve around school. Like after school, they're like, oh, how was your day? How was school? And like their faces are just very sad. Their friends' faces, because they know that, my kids get to do what they're interested in. But I definitely feel like it's a challenge to keep some of these friendships going, because it's so different from what everybody else is doing in the neighborhood. which is why I think your idea of creating like a community, like in a neighborhood or something, where you can get these ideas out to more kids that might not be familiar with it, is like awesome. I might possibly take that idea, if that's okay. Because I feel like if we can just start, like some of these other people were saying, like with the smaller communities and then just like branch out, I feel like that's a little bit easier than going with like a big school district or something.
Well, Heather, even like just now, you kind of sort of shyly said, is it okay if I take your idea? Like, we're on here trying to get people to steal our idea. Like we want people, like, take them, steal them, spread them, morph them into whatever you want. I mean, that is sort of this thing is like, where do we get these ideas from? Who allows us to do things? Even like the next question on here from Bruno was, are we not just repeating the same circle if we want to foster change from power positions? I think he was asking, Jordan, like, hey, if you want to go get a degree to foster change from above, I mean, we need people to do that. Like, there's got to be people on all fronts. But even there, you were like kind of talking about it like taking ideas, and we're like, steal this stuff, please. Like, I mean, I love doing this. This is great. But I mean, I'd rather be skateboarding in a way than doing this. That's why I made the book. I thought if I made like the app, then I wouldn't need to go talk to any. Not that I don't like talking to people. I love it. But it's like, we're trying to spread these ideas. Jordan's over here saying like, well, if we had this toolkit and if everyone just had one. So the tools are out there. I mean, so many of these resources are available, and please steal them. Please steal them.
Can I just say one more quick thing to Jordan? I know I'm not trying to like bash college, but as a teacher who just quit teaching and going to college for lots of years and doing all these trainings, just be careful, because the same things happen in college as they do in school. And you'll have people that will say to you, well, maybe you should do this, or this isn't good enough. And hopefully your unschooling will give you the tools and the confidence to stand up for like what you want, and hopefully that doesn't like diminish what you want to do and achieve down the road. That's all.
And that's actually like one of my major reservations, is that when I was in school, I was the perfect student. I mean, like my life revolved around school and getting good grades and getting the teachers to like me, and I was called teacher's pet all the time. Like that's who I was. And I'm a little, hesitant. That's one of the reasons I'm not fully on board with going to college, is I don't want to get sucked back in to a system that I've figured out how to be like intrinsically motivated, which took like the better part of 2 years. And I don't want to go back to extrinsic motivation.
Well, can you go to like community college and take a few classes that would be whatever your general ed credits would be, and maybe even some like British literature classes, and then you could get, I mean, not to say that that's the school you want to go to or anything, but you could, I mean, at any time you could just start taking classes and get your feet wet.
No,
I don't know what's going on right now. They're probably all shut down right now. Oh, you've already done this. Okay.
This past semester, I took 4 different, with 3 different colleges, with a community college and then MCLA and Williams. So I like got like a real like college class, and it was, I'm glad that I did it. And it was, actually, I stayed pretty autonomous.
It sounds like what you're looking for is to go live somewhere where you are part of a community of like-minded thinkers and doers, and share ideas and collaborate in that kind of ecosystem, sort of social professionally, not just like taking classes, but it sounds like there's that energy that you get from being in close proximity with people.
I guess. Yeah, I'm still undecided, so we'll see.
Cool.
I think a lot of teachers make decisions based on, they want to please their administrators. They're afraid. There's a fear factor. There's teacher performance appraisals that happen in your first couple of years that put a lot of pressure on teachers to conform to a system. They're often, well, not always, but motivated by innovation initially, and that's why they go into teaching. and then they get swept away by all of those flavors of the decade that they're supposed to conform to. And I know someone mentioned earlier, just close your door and do what's right. And it's true. I mean, I have done that, and it's lonely, but I've got a whole classroom of students and supportive parents when it goes well. That's one way of doing it. And now my job is to be an ally of and advocate for what I believe should be happening in our schools, and letting teachers know that, you know, you got to go with your instincts, and there's no sort of one way to do it. You just have to have the heart, you know, to allow your students to speak and listen, and they have hopes and dreams. And when they start seeing a glimpse of what could happen, then you get carried away, and you can prove to anybody that what you're doing is right. And so that's my role now. You know, first of all, it's dispelling that fear. But I think, Jordan, you do what, you know, you go where your heart takes you. We need people like you in academia. We need people like us to be everywhere. So to say, no, you're just going to conform if you do that. No, you're not, because you've had other experiences and you bring something brand new to the world of academia that, you know, we all know needs a spark. And so if people who have the spark don't do it, then those institutions will never change. Go for it.
Well put. Great words, Stephen. Thanks for sharing that.